So yesterday, a federal judge that was a Biden appointee had put out a temporary injunction against Donald Trump's executive order banning DEI practices within the government, and also had measures about private companies trying to basically squash any sort of DEI initiative, even in the private sector, and among contractors that worked for the government. Now, why did he put a temporary restraining order? He said, well, that the plaintiffs in this case would probably succeed on the merits of the case, and that there's multiple issues with this executive order, including freedom of speech and due process. One of the things with due process is enforceable acts, laws, executive orders, things like that, must not be vague. And this is very vague about what it considers DEI initiatives, DEI language, etc. It can be how they worded it in this executive order is very vague because they wanted it to be broad so they could go after any company they wanted, any person they wanted, any employee that they thought fit under this description of DEI. Um, Also, there is the part in there about going after private companies with civil litigation and enforcement practices against companies who continue to do DEI. Again, the judge said it's very vague as far as what those enforcements would be and how that would go about, especially under given, it doesn't really state under what statutes, etc. Um, Beyond that, they said there's First Amendment issues because if you are a company, because we found out in Citizens United, which allows corporations to spend money for political purposes. Corporations are people, people have the right of free speech. And by saying that companies cannot have DEI initiatives, that limits free speech. So Donald Trump lost this court case as well. Now this will get appealed, I guarantee. And the case itself isn't actually finished. This was the preliminary. They still have to have hearings on the merits of the case itself. But this temporary injunction will probably be appealed and then appealed again to the Supreme Court, no matter which side wins. I've talked a lot about these cases. They're going to get dragged out for a long time. But this is another in a long list of executive orders from Donald Trump that have been blocked at the court level because they are blatantly unconstitutional, and they violate due process, First Amendment rights, among other things.